All right, it's time for the 11warriors.com web report. This week on the show on Spectrum Sports, we stole Dan's piece, and we did the more memorable moments in Ohio State's last, really since the 2010s. Your piece goes back 1 year for that. We kind of pared it down a little bit. It was a fun walk down memory lane for me because I was lucky enough to be at most of those games and have a front row seat either on the field or in the press box for them. You guys, same for you guys. Let's start with a couple of things that I jotted down as we did the show and as I read the piece. Number one, Braxton Miller's really good. I mean, he's just stunningly good, and I'm so in the bag for him. I'm such a homer for him because he's the most fun I've ever had watching Ohio State football because you did not know from play to play what he was capable of, and most times it was spectacular. There were the injury things and maybe some inconsistency throwing, but he was just such a spectacular athlete. And the Michigan game in 2013 was one of the ones that was in there, and it was his signature moment, I think, as a signature game as a quarterback. He was just dominant. Yeah,
that was a game. It was such an offensive-driven game. It was really Braxton Miller, Devin Gardner, both going up and down the field, making play after play for both of them, and certainly that's a game you look back at. To me, it's that game, and then also in the piece for 2011 game against Wisconsin, that Hail Mary to Devin Smith in the final minute of the game. To me, those are his two signature moments. You think, some other plays that he's made as well, a lot of long runs. I know there was a play against Virginia Tech where he did the spin move.
Yeah, as a receiver, right.
It's a guy that, I said it on the show, he might be the most dynamic quarterback Ohio State's ever had. He's not the best quarterback Ohio State's ever had, but just in terms of his ability that you knew at any time when Braxton Miller's in the game, he could make a big play, and he was a lot of fun to watch.
I think he was the most important player. I don't think anyone has been asked more of than him offensively. They basically put the whole load on him in 2012, and as a sophomore, he led him to an undefeated. I mean, heck, I remember a game at Illinois where they basically just said run right, run left, and he did, and they got to win. And so he had moments like that. I don't know if anyone's been asked more of, and I don't remember a more dynamic Ohio State player. I mean, there maybe have been better ones, but in terms of home run hitting power, I don't remember one.
No, there's not. I mean, just think about the transition he had to make. Obviously, missed the entire 2014 season because of that injury, but think about the athlete that he must be and has to be to not have an entire season to get ready, and then jumps in, plays wide receiver, and becomes a third or fourth round NFL draft pick. I mean, to have that level of athleticism, it's really truly unbelievable. And he's still playing for the Houston Texans and having a good NFL career. So it really just speaks to the unbelievable athlete he was, and like you mentioned, he was integral in Ohio State's success every time he played, but especially that 2012 season, he was phenomenal.
James, I'm going to stick with you with this because you brought this up on the show, and I think it's a solid point. I'm of the belief that the biggest win in Ohio State history, and I know this will get comments, but I've always been of belief that when all was considered was the win against Alabama down in the Sugar Bowl, because it was down there. They were 9.5-point underdogs, if I remember correctly. Nobody beats Bama down there. At that point, the SEC had just dominated everything, and obviously the conference speaks for itself. But to go down there and to win, and then to win the way they did, with to be tougher, to be better, to get down behind the way that they did. The throws by Cardale Jones on the third downs to Jalen Marshall, and then the run for Zeke Elliott from 85 yards that cuts right through their heart. And you did bring up another one that's worthy of consideration, and sometimes we're short-sighted in things, and I thought you brought up a good one.
Yeah, I think the Rose Bowl to end the 1968 season really belongs in there, because that was the ultimate game for the super sophomore class that won the national championship. Yep. You took down not only USC, but you took down O.J. Simpson, who at the time was probably the biggest star in college football. And to be able to do that, and what they were able to do the next season until that 69 Michigan game, if they win that 69 Michigan game, that might go down as the best team ever to play in college football, right up there with maybe the early to mid-2000 USC programs. I mean, really, if they win that Michigan game, but that Rose Bowl against USC, I think, really belongs in that top tier of the biggest games in Ohio State history.
Yeah, and I think it's silly to say it's the best, or the one I said was they're all among the best, and they're all in the conversation. The other thing I think we can say unequivocally from this as we take a walk down memory lane, Dan, is from a uniform standpoint, we can all agree that the cocaine whites are the best alternate. Can we agree with that?
Absolutely.
Cocaine whites are the best alternate. And just put the gray back on the sleeves. Can we get that? Can we get the gray back on the sleeves, Ambassador Cole Pantone? I feel like he's got the juice to do that. I don't know if he does or not, but I think he might. But those are beautiful, both instances, the cocaine whites. And two of these games, the Penn State game we talked about in Happy Valley in 2014, and then the Michigan game were in the all whites.
No, I absolutely agree. That was my first thought when the video came up on the screen and saw those. I'm like, those are just beautiful uniforms, and I totally agree. Those two are great. But the one we disagree on are the uniforms from last year.
I couldn't believe
very
he did that to me.
polarizing uniform, and I'll be honest, like, when I first saw the markups of those last year, I didn't think I'd like them. But then going to the Penn State game, seeing the road ones at Michigan as well, they really looked nice up close in person. They really looked nice in the photos. They weren't the cocaine whites, but I liked those a lot too.
How great are the ones they wore in the championship game with the gray sleeves and the black numbers?
The gray sleeves, the black numbers, and you're going back to the Michigan game. You have to have the Buckeye leaves on the helmet. Against,
yes.
There has to be some color. I was not at all happy with the whites they wore up in Ann Arbor this year. There was no color. It was gray and white, and that's just. It's not the rivalry.
I think if you think about it, I mean, one of the things that makes a rivalry and makes something like that timeless is the ability to queue up any photo or image or video of it and instantly say Ohio State, Michigan.
Yeah.
Like if I have to, even for a millisecond, go, now is that Ohio State? That's a fail.
I agree.
Like you've got to be in scarlet and gray, and they got to be in maize and blue. And I know you're not saying that they shouldn't. I'm sure you say similar things. You just like those uniforms in a one-off situation.
Exactly.
You don't want to see them in the Michigan game.
No, and I don't want to see them every week. I mean, I absolutely agree. And I think if they could have found a way to incorporate a little scarlet into them, it would have been an upgrade. But I thought for a one-off thing, they looked really nice.
I like the whites better than the grays.
I'm interested.
I like the roads better than the
and I'm interested to see what do they do now in 2018. What you mean? We know Nike's going to come up with something that's going to sell, something that recruits are going to like. Those two things are what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're going to come up with something nice, and I'm sure some people will love it, and I'm sure some people will hate it.
I think what they did at the beginning of it, when they were paying homage to past teams, even if it was a loose homage, I thought that was the best way to do it at Ohio State, rather than making up newfangled uniforms for the Buckeyes. These are the things we do in July. We hope you enjoy the show, and we hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you next time.